Yeah. So, a very warm welcome to all the participants joining us from India, across and beyond. I'm Sanchita Biswas, Deputy Manager from Sphere India. So, on the behalf of Sphere India Academy, it's my pleasure to welcome you all in today's national webinar on strengthening PDNA, post disaster needs assessment, integrating technology, indigenous knowledge, and multi sector recovery planning. As climate change and environmental degradation intensify the frequency and complexity of disasters, post disaster recovery now extends well beyond the rebuilding physical infrastructure. It requires robust, evidence based, and inclusive assessment to capture the impacts across livelihoods, social impacts, public services, and ecosystems. In this context, PDNA has emerged as a global practice and a recognized tool to guide coordinated, resilient, and recovery planning. India's recent experiences, from floods to cyclones, landslides to slow onset disasters, highlight the need for the multi sectoral, people centered, and risk informed recovery approaches. PDNA provides a structured methodology to assess the damage, loss, recovery needs while integrating technology enabled analytics, community knowledge, and institutional coordination. Today's webinar brings and bridges together the policymakers, practitioners, technical experts, and researchers to reflect on how PDNA can be further strengthened in the Indian context. We are privileged to be joined by the pool of speakers who brings diverse perspectives spanning policy, technology, inclusion, and coordination, field recovery based planning. Their collective experience will greatly enrich today's dialogue. We are deeply honored to have with us Mr. Altamash Khan, DRR Consultant, Program Lead, HRVCA Gaya, UNDP, as the moderator for today's deliberations. Mr. Altamash is a DRR consultant with UNDP, currently leading a multi-hazard HRVCA for Gaya District, Bihar, in partnership with BSDMA. A trained PDNA practitioner and trainer, he has supported JRNA and interagency assessments across India and has worked with UNDP, ADPC, and Sphere India on recovery planning and coordination. He is also the founder of Rise Together for Safe Growth, promoting community led and inclusive disaster resilience. We welcome you. Before we proceed, I will kindly request all the speakers to adhere to the allotted time for their intervention so that we can ensure a smooth flow of discussions and adequate time for interaction. With that, I hand over to our session to our moderator, Mr. Altamash, who will guide us through today's session and take forward the deliberations. Over to you.
Thank you, dear Sanchita. Thank you for the kind opportunity and nice introduction as well. And welcome again. Welcome to all the participants. I can see people from different backgrounds have joined. And this shows that, yes, this is a topic of interest for, in fact, everyone. Before moving into the technical session, I'd like to briefly take you through uh, what is PDNA and what is JRNA. I mean, what is this basically needs assessment? Because many of our participants might be joining such kind of sessions for the first time. So this is basically a part of disaster risk management cycle, where after a disaster, the government or the stakeholders, they need some evidence-based document, some tool so that they can orient their, redirect their resources, interventions, and support accordingly. So we are here to discuss that only today. So once again, a warm welcome on behalf of Sphere India Academy, which is doing a wonderful job for last 5 years since 2020 for organizing such kind of dialogue, conversations, brainstorming on different topics, different themes, different sectors. So it's indeed very good work for Sphere India, by Sphere India Academy, and I would like to congratulate them for this and coming up with yet another important topic. And since PDN is already being done right now in India, and every year, I mean, almost you'll get to know that 4 to 5 PDN exercises keep happening every year. So it's pertinent that we discuss about this and how we can make it better, how we can improve, how we can enhance its effectiveness. So today's webinar is basically focusing on PDNA, of course, the basics and the terminologies, the frameworks we'll get to know. But moving beyond that, we'll also be trying to understand that how we can make it better, how we can make it inclusive, how we can make it, uh, how we can utilize the ongoing technology, the use of AI, the machine learning, the UAVs, the drone technology, and how we can use GIS, Bhuvan platforms, and all. So this all will be discussing today with the esteemed set of panelists that we have today. So I'd like to also let you know that in India, basically the concept of PDNA formally began in 2018 when one of the state governments formally requested UNDP and to support these exercises. And since then, it's been now 7 years that a series of PDNA has already been done, and NDMA, NIDM, they are also trying to develop a state cadre, I mean, a roster of professionals who can support the state government in coming up with such kind of exercises. Uh, PDN is, of course, I mean, usually it is done for the uh, very massive kind of disasters, but these days the focus is also on how we can conduct PDNA also for small scale disasters. So all these things are obviously experts are there who will be taking in detail around all these topics. So I'd like to quickly invite our first speaker for today, Dr. Arka Prabhas Sarkar, who is the assistant professor at NIDM. He'll be sharing insights on how PDNA has to so far 2025. What are the evolution? What are the key components of damage, loss, and needs assessment? How PDNA can be linked with India's legal and policy landscape, that is Disaster Management Act, or National Disaster Management Plan, Sendai framework, why PDNA matters for evidence-based inclusive recovery. So he'll be basically taking us through all these concepts. Before that, I would like to briefly introduce Dr. Sarkar, who holds a doctorate degree in geology from the University of Delhi. His research interests are mass movements, soil science, hill slope processes, critical zone studies, sediment connectivity, and geochronology. While working as a project scientist previously, he has played a pivotal role in establishing the Pranmati Basin Himalayan Critical Zone Observatory in Uttarakhand, which is first of its kind in the Himalayan region. And he is also the recipient of Maharshi Kanath Postdoctoral Fellowship. He is serving as an assistant subsidiary under Ministry of Home Affairs, Government of India. So I'd like to invite you, Dr. Sarkar, to kindly take us through the basics, I mean, PDNA frameworks for resilient recovery. Over to you, Dr. Sarkar.
Thank you, sir. Just wait a minute, I'll share the screen. Yes, is the screen visible to all?
Yes, it's visible.
Yes.
Yeah, you can go full screen.
It is full screen, I believe.
Yeah, it is now. Yeah,
Is it okay?
yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you, sir. So, Mr. Khan actually introduced PDNA in a very comprehensive manner. So I'll just run through these things. So basically, PDNA is something that systematically assesses the damage and losses. So damages are basically the destruction of physical assets across the various sectors, and losses are basically economic flows due to the occurrence of any disaster. Now, the assessment includes also includes basically the GDP, effects on GDP, employments, livelihoods, and other economic aspects also, including the human development indicators as well. Now it also covers the recovery and reconstruction needs. So once a disaster has happened and we need to rebuild our society back again, so obviously we need to do it in a as per the norms, a build back better way, and this would need a proper strategy. How would we do that? And this PDNA considers all of it, and that is uh, PDNA basically in a nutshell. Now, when we're talking about damage and losses, these are one of the most key areas or the fundamental areas of PDNA. So, basic difference between damage and losses: damage is always associated with assets, and loss is always associated with income flow. Damage can occur in various ways. Either a particular asset can be destroyed in entirely destroyed, in which case it might need a replacement, or it can be partially damaged where it can be repaired at a lower cost compared to the replacement. And for losses, it can be a result of service disruption, or it can be due to the expenditure that is a result of restoring the interim services. For example, say if a school building is there and there's an earthquake and this school building collapses. Now, this school building needs to be rebuilt or repaired. So, this cost that goes into rebuilding this school building, that contributes to damage. In the other way, when the school building has collapsed, there is a particular time for which the services has to be uh, taken to another area, taken to another facility for continuation, and till the school is being repaired or rebuilt, this extra cost that goes into the rent and building that interim infrastructure, for example the blackboards, for the benches and furniture, that is all there, all of it, this extra expenditure that comes in contributes to losses. This is a very simple example of differentiating damage and loss in terms of PDNA. Now, if we see the development of PDNA, although it has become it has gained a lot of traction in the past couple of years, especially in the past decade, uh, it is surprisingly not a very recent or a very new concept. PDNA was initially being done early, it was developed in the 1970s by the ECLAC, but the problem was they were only looking into the damage and loss assessment of it, just that part of it and nothing else. Now, that was developed and eventually realized that apart from that tangible damage and loss, there are other intangible aspects to that. For example, its effects on various effects on the human development, the population, and hence those areas also needed to be covered. So for that, in 2000, between 2008 and 10, the United Nations, the European Union, and the World Bank, they came together to develop a global methodology that can be used to do PDNAs. Now, this framework was adopted by a lot of countries, and numerous PDNAs have been done across the world, especially in the South Asian region. However, one striking factor was PDNAs were always done for catastrophic disasters, in the sense like disasters such as landslides, floods, cyclones, and a couple of earthquakes. However, a lot of disasters, the slow onset disasters especially, were not included in this till now. In 2015 and 2018, between 2015 and 18, India adopted this methodology of PDNA with proper guidelines, and four documents were drafted by NIDM, and they were used as standard guidelines for PDNA in India. And in 2019 onwards, PDNA was mainstreamed into the disaster management frameworks of the Indian states. In 2015 and 2018, the documents were drafted, and right now, again in 2025, these documents are again being revised. I'll come to the reasons why the revision was necessary, and that is one of the major challenges that India has been facing in PDNA. Now, between 2015 and 18, the reason for one of the major reasons for mainstreaming the PDNA and taking focus on PDNA was one of the major reasons was the 15th Finance Commission. So, till the 14th Finance Commission, whatever fund that was there for disaster management, most of it used to go into the relief and response part of it. However, with the change in paradigm from a reactive approach to a proactive approach, it was decided, the need was felt that the funds need to be rerouted at some other place also. And hence, in the 15th Finance Commission that was recommended in 2018 to be implemented from 2021 to 26, this entire fund was divided into two parts. The state disaster risk management fund and the national disaster risk management fund. So state SDRMF was with the states, and in case that fell short, the NDRMF was there to support that. Now this entire fund of SDRMF and NDRMF, it was divided into four parts. A chunk of which is 40% went to the response and relief. 10% was for the preparedness and capacity building, 20% for mitigation, and 30% was for recovery and reconstruction. Now, to access this fund that is there for recovery and reconstruction, we needed an evidence-based system to understand the recovery and the reconstruction needs. That's where PDNA came in. And PDNA was decided to be mainstreamed into the Indian states. Now, PDNA is done in a sectorial manner. So, for the Indian context, we are basically targeting four sectors: the social sector, infrastructure sector, productive sector, and the cross-cutting sector. Social sector includes housing, education, health, anything basically which is directly interacting with the society and only with the society. The infrastructure the sector includes power, transport, which are again obviously interacting with the society, but not always in a direct form, and it might be serving some other purpose or supporting other sectors also. The third is productive sector, which is the income generating sector, which includes agriculture, fisheries, animal husbandry, tourism, and trade. And then there are cross cutting sectors, which are gender, governance, and environment. Uh, these are some of the sectors that I've listed, but again, the list is not limited to this, it's not exhaustive. There are other subsectors also falling into these categories. Now, what exactly how we do the PDNA in India? First thing is baseline data. This is the pre-disaster data that we need to understand, basically understand our assets before a disaster. Once the disaster has happened, damage assessment has to be done, and the disaster effects are taken into consideration for all these sectors that have been mentioned. And now they are in relation with the baseline data. How much of this baseline data has been damaged or have been destroyed, and to what extent this has been destroyed. Now, when we are taking this disaster effects, it is important, since we want to use the recovery and reconstruction funds that are available. It is need to evaluate these disaster effects, and hence the damage and loss assessments are done in terms of uh, the monetary assessments, and hence a reconstruction and recovery costs are developed. That is the R&R cost that is there to rebuild our infrastructure and to restore our services. Once this budget has been created for a particular state, an RRR strategy is implemented based on the priorities, the financial mechanisms. Of course, that is the RNR fund is there, but then there are other also avenues which can be explored. For example, the CSR funds and other such areas. And this strategy is done, and a schedule is prepared how this restoration is going to take place. Once all this is done, a PDNA report is formalized, unifying all the sectors, and this is submitted to the Ministry of Home Affairs. Now, what is the role of NIDM. So NIDM, for people who are joining here for the first time, NIDM plays the crucial role of capacity building in the disaster management infrastructure in India. So our basically work is to sensitize, orient, and train government officials at state and district levels to assist and conduct PDNA exercises. Now, NIDM faculties, they are a part, obviously, they are a part of this training exercises. NIDM also conducts comprehensive courses wherein these PDNA exercises are, there is a session, a hands-on session is there. Again, NIDM faculties are represented, they are a part of the PDNA teams that are on field for the calculation of damage and loss and for the report preparation. And NIDM is also part of the multi-sectoral teams which assesses these reports also. Now, what are the potential challenges that we are facing in PDNA? Number one is the varying capacity of states make it very difficult for to come at for all states to come at a desirable level of results. For example, one of the finest states in PDNA that we have is Kerala. KSDMA will be speaking on that. Kerala is one of the finest states, but then all states are not Kerala who can actually meet up to that challenge and produce a fine PDNA report. And that is where one of the challenges is we need to bring everybody to that same level. The next thing is to identify and segregate subsectorial elements. Now, it is important to again reiterate the fact that in India, PDNA is a very nascent thing. So in India, it is when we are training, basically, we can see that for the participants or for the state officials, it is very difficult to identify potential loss-making areas and to segregate based on these sectors, because when you go out in this society, all these sectors are at some level overlap and cross-cutting. So that is one problem, where to draw the line and where exactly to draw the line and how to segregate it. So that is one problem that is being faced by the ground workers. The third is the gap in expectation of data. So when the PDNA teams are going to the site, they expect a kind of data. So the PDNA reports, they are made for states and they need to be, they need a very coarse data on the damage and loss. However, the data that has been collected on field is basically collected by the line departments and the district officials, which are at a very granular level. Now, to bring that granular data to what the PDNA team needs, that is again a big challenge. At times, there have been cases where the officials, the data is there, but probably not in the format in which the PDNA team needs it. In other cases, the data is the team on the field and the line departments are basically not being able to understand what the PDNA team is expecting. So there's a big gap. So in that way, uh, just without being jumping to the final level, we are basically trying and experimenting to train the line departments exactly what kind of data we are expecting out of them for the PDNA reports. Another problem is the lack of baseline data. Now, a lot of schemes and a lot of infrastructure that is there, it is very old and they are not probably registered or digitized. As a result, the baseline data is incomplete. And when the damage data comes, it is the baseline data, which is at times difficult to explain. For example, the picture that you can see over here, these pipelines are uh, almost it's actually, this picture is from Jain. These pipelines have been laid down decades ago, and there are no reports of these pipelines in the records. Now, when the damage happened, and you can see the PVC pipelines being laid down for the interim supply, now they were not being recorded, and hence the damage data was coming much more than the the recorded data that is the baseline. Now,
Uh,
another thing that I raised was
Dr. Prakash,
PD.
excuse me.
Yes, sir.
Can you please try to wrap it up
Yes,
because
it's the
yeah,
last. It's the last one.
thank you.
So the PDNA that in India we are doing, we are only targeting floods, cyclones, earthquakes, the major catastrophic disasters. But one of the major another set of disasters which are affecting us is the heat wave, cold wave, the drought, which are essentially not damage centric, but there's a huge loss associated with these disasters. Can PDNA be done for these catastrophic disasters? Now, this in the global scenario, it has also not been done, and that is one problem that PDNA teams need to, or researchers need to address. The last thing I would like to state over here is PDNA. When the PDNA model that we had adopted was a global methodology. Now, when we are working with the Indian states, it is a very dynamic state. It's a very diverse state, and the global methodologies at all levels might not be applicable to India. For example, the kind of economy we drive, the kind of culture we have, the methodology needs to be tweaked, and that is where we are working right now to tweak the existing documents that we have, and that is what NIDM is taking up right now. And that will be all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kaparba. And that was important insights on the basics of PDNA, all the global methodology, how NIDM has been supporting this, and how it is linked with different legal framework in India. So I hope that our participants who are joining for the first time and they're getting to know this when for the first time only about the PDNA, they got to understand the basics, and that will help now in moving forward with the agenda of this uh, webinar, where we'll be inviting the speaker, uh, Dr. Shivani Gupta. She'll be our second speaker for the day. She'll be taking us through integration of inclusion and disability perspectives uh, in PDNA for equitable recovery. Before that, I'll like to introduce Dr. Gupta. Uh, she is a disability inclusion expert with over 25 years of experience working to advance independent living and accessibility for persons with disabilities, particularly in less resourced settings. She has worked with governments, UN agencies, private sector actors, and organizations of persons with disabilities across India, Asia Pacific, and Africa. Ms. Shivani holds an MSc in Inclusive Environments from the University of Reading, UK, and a PhD from Maastricht University, Netherlands. She is also the author of No Looking Back, a memoir reflecting her lived experiences as a woman with disabilities in India. So it's indeed a pleasure for us to have you here, Dr. Shivani. Uh, you'll be reflecting on how geospatial uh, tools, digital platforms, and emerging technologies can improve PDNA accuracy, timeliness, and usability. Over to you, Dr. Shivani. Thank you for.
Yeah, thank you so much for that introduction. And I'm actually be focusing a little more on disability inclusion aspects, things like data collection and things, and also going to be presenting, like example of data collection that we actually did. Something, similar to PDMA, but not definitely the same. So if you can go to the next slide, please. So first, I'll very quickly introduce the organization that I work with. I work with the Global Disability Innovation Hub, which is a research and delivery center based out of University College, London. And the organization is a legacy of the London Olympics. And at GDI Hub, we accelerate ideas into impact for a more just world for persons with disabilities and for all people. If we can go to the next slide. So now 80-20-30 is one of our flagship program, which GDI Hub leads, funded by the Foreign Commonwealth Development Office, and it tests what works to improve life-changing assistive technology for all. And inclusive environments are recognized as one of those aspects which are like integral for using assistive technology. If we can go to the next slide. So here I would like to actually talk about a research that we did on the lived experiences of persons with disabilities in across 6 cities in the world. And this is just a representation of the cities. So there was also a city in India, which is Varanasi. And it was a very participatory research methodology where we were trying to collect data on the state of inclusion or inclusive environments in the cities, and it was a very code designed activity throughout that was used to collect this data. And I may say here that, if you're looking for data really relevant for persons with disabilities, it is very scarce, very difficult to find. Also because persons with disabilities are usually not included in such kind of activities. If we can go to the next slide. So as an outcome of this study, we came out with these global reports, the comparison report and the global action report being the main reports, for which I will share a QR in the end after doing the entire presentation. So in my presentation, I'm going to be talking about assessing differential impact on persons with disabilities. I'm going to talk about inclusive data collection and accessibility focus assessments and ensuring equity and no one left behind in recovery planning. So those are the key areas that I intend to cover. So this is something that we have already talked about, and I would not go into greater detail, just say that evaluation of damage, loss, and recovery needs to also address specific, aspects that persons with disabilities have. Guides recovery planning, financing, and policy discussion and opportunities to address pre-existing inequalities. And here again, disability needs to be very specifically addressed. Otherwise, there are good chances of it getting left behind. Yeah. So now why disability matters? First of all, I mean, just to give numbers, globally, 16% of the population comprises of persons with disabilities. Older persons are people who are very often facing disabilities, and persons with disabilities are disproportionately affected by disaster. And it is common knowledge that the mortality rate amongst persons with disabilities may be 2% higher as compared to other persons. Barriers that they face, barriers to evacuation, shelters may be inaccessible to them, health, housing, and information. They may not even get information about the disaster and the post-disaster kind of activities. And inclusive recovery reduces long-term social economic costs, and which, of course, is what one is looking at when one is doing the PDNA exercise. If we can go to the next slide. So from the perspective of persons with disabilities, the principles of inclusive PDNA really need to be non-discriminatory and enable equality. There should be participation of persons with disabilities in all aspects and consultation and work that happens through this process. Universal design and accessibility must be inbuilt in this entire process. And of course, build back better, because unless we do not build back better, we do not build back communities and, uh, spaces and areas where we live and do our work. We don't make them more inclusive and we're building them back better, then that's a really, really big opportunity lost. So yeah. Identify impact across disability types. Now, while addressing disability in PDNA assessments and work, one needs to recognize that disability is not a heterogeneous group. They are diverse persons with disabilities who may be impacted in a very different way and who may have different requirements for post-disaster kind of inclusion. Then analyze access to services, infrastructure, and livelihoods. Now here, this is what I would like to focus, talk a little bit about the research that we did and analyzing access to services and infrastructure from the perspective of persons with disabilities really requires persons with disabilities to be at the forefront of the discussion, to give those insights and capture gender, age, and poverty data. Now, of course, disability, there are a lot of intersections with disabilities. And of course, with those intersections, people may be further marginalized and, less and less be in the process of post-disaster recovery and planning. If we can go to the next slide. So when we're talking of inclusive data collection, and data is definitely one of the key requirements for the PDNA, I just wanted to talk about the Washington group of questions, the short set of questions, which can be very easily adopted in existing data collection processes and methods. And this is really a non-stigmatizing kind of collection of disability data, because we know that as soon as we're talking of disability, people do not like to share the fact that they may have a disability and things like that. So the Washington group of questions, especially the short set of questions, are a very good starting point to get disability disaggregated data. Also data through accessible surveys and consultations. And here again, consultations with persons with disabilities and engagement of OPDs, which are organizations of persons with disabilities. And these kind of consultations and engagement needs to be in an accessible way, in a way that they can actually give their inputs they have, let's say, reasonable accommodation to be able to participate in an equal basis in these kind of consultation with others. If we can go to the next slide. So this, again, I'm not going to talk much about multi-level integration. Of course, the previous speaker already talked about, housing, health, education, transport, wash, and all the areas where PDNA needs to make impact. And from the perspective of persons with disabilities, integration of universal design standards is really critical in the post-disaster process. If we can go to the next slide. So, from assessment to recovery, there needs to be a prioritization of inclusive recovery actions. So all the actions that are going to be happening needs to ensure that disability is addressed in them. There needs to be allocated funding for specifically to address accessibility and inclusion in these processes, and integration of universal design into policies and in standards, something that I already said before. If We can go to the next slide. So what are the benefits of making an inclusive recovery? There is stronger resilience and preparedness. There is reduced inequality and poverty and sustainable people-centered development. It enables sustainable people-centered development and inclusive. The key messages really are that inclusive PDNA ensure recovery and leave no one behind. And accessibility and disability inclusion are an investment and not a cost. So with that, I will come to my last slide. A lot of what I said is from the Global Action Report and the Global Comparison Report that we published last year. And here is the QR code in case anyone would like to go through these documents. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shivani. That's indeed very inclusive because you touched upon all the important aspects of an inclusive approach, the principles, how it can be uh, inclusive in terms of technology, in terms of our assessment processes. Of course, like it's very challenging to be completely inclusive in our approach while doing PDNA, while doing JRNA. JRNA, obviously, they are very short kind of approach, but in PDNA, we have that scope. So thank you so much for taking all of us through all that, and good to know about your organization also. That's doing a really wonderful job. We have got one query from our participant, which I'd like to pose to you because perhaps you have some other meeting to join. So I'd like to share that query, which is what are the challenges faced to leaving no one behind for person with disability? One of our participants, Mukul Kumar, he has raised this query for you.
So I think, people with disabilities are left behind throughout the cycle, the disaster cycle, really from, there is a very close link between disability and poverty already established. And first of all, whether they are involved in planning, so are they already identified? Is the emergency information, pre-information that is given for people to evacuate, whether that is in accessible formats, whether they have access to that, how are they evacuated, whether, in the sense transportation for evacuation, are they able to use that? Are they able to take the assistive technology? And many times, the assistive technology gets left behind. They may have special requirements, dietary requirements, they may have medical requirements, they may have, these kind of requirements may not, it may not be possible to really address during a disaster in a shelter if it isn't already planned. And it would already be planned only if there has been ground research and data collection, and they have been involved in emergency planning processes, and they know what is their evacuation plan. And even after that, after the disaster, let's say in post-disaster, we are talking of building back better. But frankly, what we see, it's not always so inclusive. It doesn't really involve persons with disabilities in planning. It doesn't consult with organizations or persons with disabilities to really know what is the requirement. And, such kind of things just marginal, keep persons with disabilities marginalized. And so I think there is a lot to say about, how people with disabilities get left behind in this entire disaster process.
Of course. Thank you so much, Dr. Shivani. I hope Mr. Mukul, and that's true, of course. So thank you so much once again. Uh, Moving forward, I would like to now invite our next speaker, So far, like we discussed about the introduction of PDNA, how it can be inclusive. Now, our next speaker will be taking us through the exact PDNA processes. What she, I mean, she was also involved perhaps, and there was one PDNA, in fact, that first formal PDNA exercise that was in Kerala. So she'll be taking us through some of the insights from that PDNA exercise. What were the findings? How were the experiences? So I'd like to invite Dr. Midila from Kerala SDMA. She is a state project officer with the KSDMA, and she's herself a disaster management professional, where she is also a state IG convener at the KSDMA, Kerala State Disaster Management Authority. IG is basically a forum for different stakeholders to come together and collaborate with each other on disaster management. So she is also the IG convener. She supports multi-stakeholder coordination, interagency group facilitation, and disaster preparedness at the state and district level in the state of Kerala, including the contributions to PDNA and response planning. She holds a PhD in social inclusion and inclusive policy and has actively engaged with community-led interventions, NGO, government coordinations, and inclusive disaster governance, drawing insights from field responses such as Mepidi landslide and other major risk events across Kerala. So I would like to invite Dr. Midla to kindly take us through some of the insights from the past disasters in Kerala, or the uh, overview of the past disasters, what were their impacts, the PDNA initiatives led by KSDMA, sector-wise loss, and what to you, Dr. Midla?
Okay, thank you, Altamash. Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you. So before getting into my presentation, I would like to give a small like context. So when the disaster, like I will be largely talking about the Mepadi landslide, the PDNA which we developed for Mepadi landslide. So when the disaster struck, the very next day, few of our officers were stationed in that particular area, that means Mepadi in Wayanad district. So because of that stationing there, which exceeded more than 2-3 months, we were able to come up with this PDNA document where most of all the aspects were covered. So when we were asked to do the PDNA document, what exactly we thought about is like, as in the opening remark, Altamash pointed out, in 2018, when the last flood happened in Kerala, Kerala was the first district to conduct the PDNA document, PDNA with the help of UNDP. So, um, UNDP. Am I audible? My signal strength is little less, so I'm just switching
Yes,
off
yes,
my
you're
video.
yeah,
Okay.
loud and clear.
So we just reflected upon the 2018 PDNA document, and also as the first speaker pointed out, we refer lots of NIDMA documents, SOPs, and the guidelines developed by NDMA also. And these were a few things which thought, okay, we have to keep in mind. First of all the risks and assessment were clearly or accurately identified. But then whether there are enough resources within our hand, or whether we have to pull it from outside, and the efficiency of the response and recovery plan, because we will be having sector-wise PDNA assessment. So while doing the sector-wise assessment, for every sector, we thought of giving a response and recovery plan. And next one is identification of gaps and shortcomings. So where exactly whether the 2018 our PDNA document or the documents and SOPs and guidelines developed by NDMA, whether there is any gap in our Mepadi landslide PDNA, will we be able to address that? And next one is timeline and implementation. We actually, this PDNA document, we really doesn't want it to be a technical document of loss and damage assessment. Rather than that, we were always wanted to have this PDNA to become the voice of the people who were really affected. So these were the things which we initially thought of. And for that matter, we have developed a methodology. So in that methodology, as we all know that most of all the time the disaster Post-disaster need assessment is highly prioritizing the loss and damage of the tangible items. But when we go through, when we're in the field, when the incident happened, when we interacted with the community, we also came to know that there are certain things which is beyond our eyes, beyond our imagination, which we really can't quantify. So while having a consultation meeting with the NDMA, we raised this issue and we thought of doing an intangible asset loss. That's one of the novel thing we did for this PDNA. So this is the entire structure. So we did two kind of classification, the loss and damage assessment for the tangible things and intangible needs, and how we develop that. And we have developed few methodologies and framework. So this is basically how we did our Mepadi landslide PDNA. So this is the kind of structure we gave for every chapter. We did for hazard analysis, cross-cutting, which includes financial, insurance risk financing, intangible impacts. So for that, a history. What were really happening in Wayanad? What were the activities the Disaster Management Authority of Wayanad or the Kerala State Disaster Management Authority for the time being doing? What are the capacity building programs? Who are the stakeholders who were actively playing? And all those things were, because then only we will be able to identify the gap and where we went wrong. So the history was there, then the overview was there, then what exactly happened, who all were affected. So this is how we get develop the entire chapters. And next one is the social sector, infrastructural sector, and productive sector. And we have also done a chapter on MSME, small large scale business management. So in that, we clearly focused on overview, response, damage, loss, recovery, and reconstruction, because there it's largely based on material things. That means tangible. So this is the framework we have developed for each chapters. As I explained, before doing the PDNA itself, we were actively in contact with the community and what exactly needed to be done for the community in order to come out of this disaster, and everything were planned. And when this Mepadi is a township, was a township which was completely washed away. So one of the proposal by the community itself is that we want to have our own township, which was washed away. So we want to have our own township. So while doing the PDNA, this particular concept was also discussed, and a framework and a planning was mentioned. So this is so based on this, the township is being developed there. And the next one is that we are having a township, their livelihood and everything was entirely washed away. So what kind of livelihood and interventions we can be done? That was also pointed out in the PDNA document as an in the introductory part. So this is the a kind of blueprint we have developed. So, as I mentioned, for every chapter, for every sectors, we have developed a response plan. Okay, these are the areas, these are the interventions we have to do. This much people were affected, or this much facilities were affected. So, for that matter, we have to have this kind of project, this kind of proposal. In that, we can have these type of stakeholders, etc. So, this is a kind of proposal of implementation framework we have developed for education department based on the loss and damage assessment led by the sectoral teams. So, based on this, Department of Education, who all can be there? One school was completely affected. Anganwadis were affected. So, whether we have to build a new school, so how many children are left? Because there was a large casualty. So, whether we can send these children to some other places or within the township, whether we have to have a new school. So, this kind of discussions were developed based on this implementation framework. Another thing, compared to the 2018 PDNA document, what we did is the psychosocial well-being. As I pointed out, there are not only the tangible, there were intangible asset loss also. The psychosocial well-being of the community was really important. So, in that document, what we did is we haven't went to the camp or do any kind of assessment, but in consultation with the health department and the doctors who were actively in the field, and also sectoral experts from KSDMA and from other stakeholding organizations, we did this. So in this chapter also, what we have did is, so far what Kerala State Disaster Management Authority or the state government been doing in aspect of psychosocial well-being, especially while addressing a disaster situation. It needed to be psychosocial first aid, psychosocial care. So we have a psychologist in our in our office. So in consultation with her also, we have developed this. And also, this is how we did, like psychosocial well-being. For instance, like first we have assessed the damage and loss, then we have give implementation framework. This is how we can address this issue and how this issue was addressed. So this is one example for that. First of all, along with the help of the state government, we had a psychosocial supporting team. Then comprehensive mental health services were provided. So this is how we have did the entire process. So in this PDN document also, we try to identify not only the damage and loss. While identifying the damage, in order to address that particular damage, in order to address that particular loss, what are the measures that needed to be done, or how we can address that particular issue. Then only in the response and recovery phase we can invest more, and we can invite other stakeholders to invest for this cost. So that's why we have developed this. So as part of this Kuttidam, with the support of CWC, UNICEF, we have developed this particular thing. So Kuttiyadam is like we have a project for art-based therapy with the help of Loyola School, College. So there, with the help of the Department of Social Work and Disaster Management, and also with the UNICEF help, we are doing this project. So we, whatever we are doing at KSDMA, we thought of applying into the field, because that was something which really mattered. So in the PDNA document also, we tried to prioritize, we tried to explain all these aspects. So next one is the importance and involvement of interagency groups. So from the day one itself, we have started a IAGGO coordination desk in the collectorate, where actually the Spear India were actively supporting along with UNICEF in order to conduct this program. So since being the state IAG convener, what we thought is not only the governmental organization, along with that, we also need CBOs, non-governmental organization, and interagency group, because the casualty and the catastrophe was such a massive in cost, not only one particular institution will be able to address. So this is the framework and methodology we have developed. So while writing the PDNA, after getting all the necessary document assessment list and everything, while developing the PDNA, this kind of involvement by the IAG groups were really helped us to facilitate and bring us to a larger voice to the people. So this is the framework which we developed. This particular framework will come under the disaster risk reduction chapter. Another one is the incorporation of indigenous knowledge. In the initial slide, I have mentioned that the community asked for a township. Since they were all coexisting, they really wanted to replicate the same coexisting township. But at the same time, Wayanad in Kerala, 1.3 percentage of population is tribal population, and they are largely located in Wayanad district. So in this landslide also, one of the tribal community, Paniya, got affected. But there were no, thankfully, there were no loss of life, or their property were lost. Their area was affected. That's the only thing. And many of the tribal communities were coming to this township for their livelihood. So that wise, their livelihood was also affected. So the one of the interesting factor was that no casualties were reported, and in many of the cases in landslides or in other disasters, the tribal community or the indigenous community who are dwelling on particular area, the casualty loss was really limited. So, as part of the International Disaster Risk Reduction 2023, we have developed a a methodology for indigenous knowledge. Means not only the scientific techniques and human voices or the scientific repository can be referred, and also the lived experience, human aspirations, everything needed to be understood in order to have a larger DRR framework. So, this is the framework which we have developed. So, about the indigenous knowledge creation and the relevance and importance of indigenous knowledge was also pointed out in the disaster risk reduction. So, how it can be a success story, how well, or in other cases, how this can be mainstream, how the indigenous knowledge can be mainstream in order to like reduce the casualties or the disaster situation. That was one of our major goals. Another thing as I pointed out, compared to other 2018 PDNA document and the larger PDNA documents, we have incorporated one chapter on MSME, small scale business and livelihood. As I pointed out, we really wanted to voice out for the people. This Mepadi landslide was a highly tourist area. So many of the people in that particular township were having small scale businesses. But most of the time in the damage and loss assessment, this kind kind of involuntary jobs were not properly getting advised, not getting like focused. So because of that matter, we have included this chapter, and the state government are also coming up with micro plans. That means micro plan for each community, each household, where they'll proper in order to access what exactly is the lost. If as per the RR window it cannot be compensated from the state machinery, whether we can compensate it through Kudumbashree missions, MG Naregas, and other state welfare and flagship programs. For that matter, this particular chapter was introduced, included. Another one, as our second spokesperson was talking about inclusion, we try to focus on this particular concept also. In the 2018 document, we focused on gender and inclusion. But since the disaster is getting a frequent thing and there were so many people who were being left behind, so considering leaving no one behind as an agenda of KSTMA, so we had a chapter on children, tribals, elderly, person with disability, migrant laborers, extreme poor, and gender perspective. So we try to identify the transgender people also. So these all data were taken from the social justice department, and then we cross check, because sometimes these people won't really like for instance, transgender people, sometimes they won't come out. So it was very difficult for us, since we were working closely with the community and especially the IAG groups. They were able to identify certain people. So in order to address those kind of things, we did this particular chapter. And next one is finance and insurance. So now we are like in the era, now we are talking about disaster risk finance, which is still in the pipeline. So what we did is, there were so many people in the community who took different types of loans, but most of the time the banks were really reluctant to let go this loan. And also sometimes we won't get enough recovery and reconstruction window funding or any other funding to address this particular issue. So how this can be addressed, since these people are having this much of loans? So this is the, and for that matter, we have, during the PDNA, we collected data for that also, how many people are having loan. And along with the micro plans, the state government was doing a micro plan study. So with the help of that data also, we did this particular chapter. And next one is this intangible impacts. As I pointed out, most of the time RR window will address only the tangible things, but there are certain intangible things which we are not able to address. So this is the framework which we identified. Since Mepadi is a tourist area which is highly blessed with scenic beauty and natural beauty, so the two things which we identified was the social fabric laws and social environmental. Social fabric laws was because they were having different type of religious identity. Their worshipping place was lost. So if we are building a township, maybe they will ask for a religious facility there to worship their deities. And also another thing is indigenous tribal identity. So the tribal community, certain tribal communities, we have primitive vulnerable communities, and the particular community who was affected Pania, locally they are known as Katu Pania. They used to prefer to live inside the forest. So they used to worship their land as their deity, and they have certain religious ritualistic practices. So these people really don't want to come into the township. So what the state government is doing, with the help of the Forest Right Regulation Act and everything, we are trying to identify a separate land for the tribal community, and houses are being built for them on that particular area. So another thing is loss of fertility, because most of the time during war and other kind of situation, the along from the starting from the SRH and everything, this kind of issues were not really addressed. So these are the 2 points we identified. And the loss of environmental fabric which we did is like aesthetic loss. As I pointed out, tourism was one of the primary livelihood for the people, and next one is MSMEs. So since the particular area was completely washed out, the aesthetics of that area was completely gone. So the tourism, the livelihood opportunity was completely washed out. Next one is ecological network. Wayanad is largely blessed with forest, and we have lots of wild animals over there. So the ecological connectivity between the human and the nature was cut down. So that loss is also there. And next one is carbon footprint. So because we are developing a new township in an area, there we are forced to cut trees. We forced to do certain things which is not really an applicable or like a promising thing for environmental, if in an environmental conservation aspect. So these were, so because why we develop this framework is like this kind of situation can always trigger certain kind of shock, and human beings, including the animals, will not be able to come out of this kind of shock, which can be resulted in emotional displacement, mental strain, cultural fragmentation, or ecological grief. So the government or the machinery or the disaster management authority is also responsible to address this kind of stresses the community is going through after a disaster. So since one of our proposal and we are trying to talk it through NDMA is also that whether we can give any kind of assistance to these people. For instance, why we are talking about psychosocial well-being, the trauma they have induced from the disaster, it will take a lifelong process to come out of that trauma. Sometimes they won't even come out, and we know that as counseling or a therapy costs really much. Since we have state missionaries, counselors under CWC or social justice department or Kudumbashri mechanism in Kerala, sometimes the workforce is very limited. So we really need to have that kind of approach into that. So as part of intangible asset impact, we identified one of the parameters as loss of fertility. So as we all know that as per the UNFPA, within 34 hours after a disaster, the minimum initial service package for SRH, sexual and reproductive health, needed to be executed. But most of the time, it's not being properly activated in after a disaster. So, along with the Family Planning Association of India, it's an IAG member from Trivandrum. So, we did an SRH camp along with the SRH officer of State Health Department, and we did a camp for them to address when we talk about sexual reproductive health, there the psychological violence, everything was addressed. So these were I really talked about the entire thing, which were really novel for this PDNA document, because the first the first resource person has clearly explained how the PDNA document needed to be done and what are the sectors and everything. So that are those things we did the same thing, the damage and loss assessment. After that, we did a recovery and reconstruction planning. But apart from that, these were the active areas which we did as novel. That's why I pointed out those things. And what exactly we are looking forward to is a database of recovery plan and implementation, because whenever there is a disaster, until the preparation of a recovery plan or a responsive plan, after that what happens is a really thing, as pointed out in the first talk, the recover from the this much 40% is there, 30% is there. Sometimes the psychosocial well-being or the intangible thing cannot be addressed in that. So during that cases, how we have to address these issues, and whatever we are proposing through this PDNA document can be addressed. So for that, these are the things which we are rightly looking into while we are talking about the infrastructure investment, how to strengthen this kind of critical infrastructure for future disasters. So what the state can do, what the central can do, or what the IAG or CBOs or other multiple stakeholders can do, and part of community preparedness. If we don't have the enough machineries or capacity, we can always have an IAG or an other institution or an educational institution in order to do that. And for insurance and financial mechanisms, as the climate change is happening drastically and disaster is also hectic, we need to have an insurance policy for that. But how to address it? Because banks and other multi financial institution, they will be having their own agenda. So while addressing these issues, how we have to go about it? Then how this post disaster recovery plan need to be done? So now whatever we are focusing now is the post disaster recovery planning. So we have developed this kind of framework, this much of thing, and based on that, we have requested to give us this much of amount so that entire thing can be planned and managed. But since we know that the government system, the bureaucratic system, the governance, administration, everything, there are certain do's and don'ts, certain areas which will not come under certain areas. So this PDNA document we have developed in such a way that not only we are looking into other projects and implementation frameworks from other organizations so that they can come and invest, they can take small project to address the loss which happened during this landslide. So this is an overall framework. I hope I made justice to this talk.
Of course,
So that's
thank you,
that
Dr.
was
Midila.
Mhm.
So you are done with your presentation?
Yes, that's it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Midila. You, in fact, touched all that in a very brief and concise manner and in a very comprehensive manner, which every speakers share in their talks. So thank you so much again for taking us through the experiences, your own personal experiences and the state's experiences from recent landslides in Mapadi and previous PDN exercises. What were the challenges? What are the key innovations? Uh, I would like to know from you, like from the recent landslide after the PDN exercise, the township is being developed. So if you would like to take us very briefly on the status of that and how it has been successful and inclusive.
So now we have started. So we did a micro plan along with the help of Kudumbashree. So in that we have identified the stakeholders who exactly in need of the housing facility and who are really willing to come inside the township. If they don't want to come inside the township, where exactly they wanted to be located. So like we have identified few stakeholders. For instance, Uralungal is a organization which they are constructing the house, and we also have GIF B in place. So with the help of state government machineries we are developing the township. So one of the actually it's been inaugurated. So what exactly is the need of the community? Based on that we have developed this township, especially it's like the housing facility. So for that, how we did the township is like we have identified three areas. Since these people, all of them wanted to come into one place, we identified three tea estates from Mepadi region, and one tea estate were really reluctant to give away their land, and with the help of court and everything, we identified that place and we gave them enough like compensation and everything, and we have developed the plan. So this is how we have done it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. So that was a very comprehensive sharing from you, Dr. Mitla, and I hope if any of the participants they have any query regarding this presentation and from the Kerala experiences, so please feel free to raise your hand, or maybe you can put in the chat also. We'll take it up with the respective speakers. So now moving ahead, we are going to invite our next speaker for today, Dr. Shri Shravan. Uh, he'll be talking on use of technology and indigenous knowledge for PDNA, because recovery planning ultimately translates into investments and implementation. So Dr. Shri Ravan, who leads geospatial and frontier technology innovation through the Earthsight Foundation and Development Technologies Accelerator, DEV-TA, advancing sustainability through grassroots interventions. He is having more than 18 years of experience in senior roles at the United Nations, where he led global programs including UN Spider and initiatives at UNOOSA, promoting the use of space technologies for disaster management. And of course, achievements of the Sustainable Development Goals, delivering policy and technical advisory support across 70 plus countries. Earlier at ISRO and CDAC, he contributed to diverse domains such as disaster management, climate action, biodiversity, agriculture, urban development, and sustainable planning. So I understand we are going to be, we are going to benefit a lot from his experiences and his sharings, where he'll be talking on use of technology and indigenous knowledge, remote sensing, GIS, UAVs, artificial intelligence for rapid post-disaster assessment, how we can integrate real-time data, NDEM, Bhuvan, and state GIS platforms, traditional and ecological knowledge as a source of actionable insights. So all these things. So over to you, Dr. Shri Shravan, who is the director at Earthsight Foundation. You'll be speaking on multi-sector recovery planning, financing mechanisms, and the role of instruments like insurance and risk transfer.
Thank you. I have missed the initial introduction and as well as the context that has been built by all the speakers here, because I was in another meeting with GIS and I just closed that and shifted here. So if I go out of context, please intervene and let me know that, oh, this is covered, or you just
Sure.
so correct me if anything. I don't have very formal presentation for that, but I would be sharing my experiences of recent PDNA in Jammu and Kashmir. And that will build some context, and then of course I will touch upon the my topic of discussion is more on how remote sensing GIS and other tools can be useful in PDNA. And that doesn't mean that they are being used right now, but I'm developing that context, and I think we need a lot of work to do on how these technologies can make post-disaster need assessment more lucid, easy, objective. So lot things can be done there. So let me, instead of presentation, I will just take you through a little bit of photographs to build the context. And so let me share my screen. Right. So I'm sharing. Right. So hope you see that.
Yes.
Yes, sir,
Yes,
it is
Mr.
Yeah.
visible.
Naresh.
Okay. And just tell me if it is scrolling well. It goes ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. Then I can make a story to build the context. It happened in August and September. Maybe other experts have talked about their experiences in PDNA in different places, but mine is very recent in Jammu. So this is, we were going on the way to Ramban, and I saw this kind of, this is the place we had our lunch. And then we talked to people and they showed us these photographs that just about a month back in September, the situation was like that. Up to first floor, there were debris and entire landslide happened from this side. And now you can see this owner, private owner has done some mitigation. He has built a wall here. And within 1 month time, the restaurant is again functioning. That shows a fantastic resilience that people have there into private businesses there. Uh, so this happened in August, about August 25 to September first week. There were such a historic rainfalls. People say 2014 floods of Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir, were not even comparable. These were much, much worse than 2014. All they remember is 2014, and after that, now they forget 2014. This is a completely different. In certain districts, the floods were, no, the rainfall was 1,100% more than normal. And that tells us the story of how climate change is taking toll. It's not just climate change, but it's also big highways being constructed all over in the mountain, and a lot of loose boulders, and they come down. In some of the places, like entire village in Ramban district is getting slided. So houses are still intact, but they have moved their position from one place to another. So people have already shifted from that. Then you can imagine leaving the house you're staying traditionally for several years, and you have to find a new place with no land, nothing. So it's a big thing for people, basically. This was the, yeah, you can see how scale. Now, what helps me when we come to use of technology as well. So in the field, I did not have access to any other technology but the Google Earth, which is most easy. And none in my team was ever opening Google Earth because they are from different background, and I have a flavor of remote sensing GIS technologies in my entire career as a lady inspired program. So I said, okay. Initially, I insisted in the first meeting in Jammu and Kashmir that our group must have someone from the state remote sensing application center so that we'll get an access to all the maps, satellite images of various times, because they do have archive. But it seems that disaster management agencies, they are not very well connected with them, and they are not connected with disaster management. So even if they are on board, they will not have data ready for sharing with the damage assessment team. This is one gap I saw. So it's not all about technology. We have fantastic satellite access to fantastic satellite images, but governance is something that really stops us. So what I did by best is we were in place where they showed us the building. sorry, after Jammu Kashmir cold and Delhi later on, and stuck in Indigo, traveled by bus from Delhi to Pune. I'm little bit suffering from cold. Everyone suffered probably during Indigo's disaster. This Ayush building, there's only one building in entire Jammu division, Ayush building. Now you see the river has changed course. It's quite a broad river and it has changed the course, and now building is almost in the river course. Then I wanted to ask how was it before the flood? Was it like that or different? And they were just describing. I said, okay, forget, let's go to Google Earth and see. And we were standing here on the bridge, and from there we were looking down. So this is the Ayush building, and you see course of river is always like that. And this seems to be more like a road, approach road, and there are this thing. And now it is like that. So just having a very simple tool in my hand, give my entire team and even the Jammu Kashmir officers who were with me, evidence of it was like this and now it has become like this. So this simple understanding helped us to understand the severity, to what extent the river had changed the course. Now the question comes immediately, if it was like this, and now it has happened like this, do we need to shift this? Because PDNA is always assessing the cost, or we can simply mitigate this. So mitigation seems difficult, then get into another area of finding alternate land, which is much safer, because this is a medical facility, has to be at the safer place, not in the risky places like this. So even identifying new place, which is more secure, also can be done through some maps and satellite images. Of course, there were some other points I wanted to show you, but more, this is our team, but I just want to show you another damage. We were standing here at this particular place, and this said, okay, was the bridge and there was a traffic here. It's gone. We don't even feel that there was something existing here. And these houses are vacated. And then I said, okay, let me look at what was there, people. And then we saw there were two parallel roads. Now this doesn't exist anymore. So you can see this doesn't exist. So this was the bridge. Means if someone doesn't tell me there was a bridge, I don't even understand what kind of damage it was by being there until and unless I see a past image. Then I see, of course, there are some buildings here, and this is dam line. And yeah, so this is that dam line, which you can see here. This is the line. So there was a breach basically in this dam. And because of that, water gushed from all sides and also from these sides. And this area never was flooded in historical time, but it got flooded and entire bridge got washed out. These buildings got damaged. And this is that building basically, and this is the bridge. So just being in the field and looking at it, having some images and some documentation of the past archives gives us true picture. Then we went to another place called Araspura, which is one of the district in Jammu. And this is the only place where agricultural damage is very, very extensive. And it looked like something like this, as if we are in Rajasthan. So we were just walking in a lot of sand, and people were desilting these either by putting their personal money to collect this sand, or there is also mining department. They also have some mandate of collecting this sand. Then we were curious, how was this area before? And they were saying, no, this is called the wheat ball of Jammu. I said, it doesn't look like it. No, they said, because this is flood zone of Tavi River, and it is a wheat ball, and it's one of the best agriculture. So then I wanted to really know it. And again, I did the same trick, and I could see. Now you see here, this is the place we were, more zoomed area. These are all fantastic fields. You can see all these greens are mostly wheats in different stages all over here. We're standing here, and now it is like this. You see this river. I'm here looking at this river. I'm here looking at this river, and this entire thing is filled with sand like this. It's maybe 1-2 feet of sand. This gives me clear understanding that to bounce back or recover to this particular extent for this big agriculture area, how much financial resources are required. What needs to be done to, desilt this entire area, reclaim the land again. So what should be per acre cost? Now government is giving the cost 18,000 under the SDRF, the State Disaster Response Fund, 18,000 per hectare. But if you ask, I'm trying to get the real cost based on the depth of the sand on there and transportation to be done to take that sand away and some more treatment for soil. It might come somewhere more between 1 lakh to 1.5 lakh per hectare. And they will lose their livelihood for the next few years until the land gets reclaimed, unless they adopt to the new cropping pattern, which is also difficult. So just by looking at all those images, I thought how critical it is, and I was also surprised that none my PDNA team and none in the team from Jammu and Kashmir at different places when they came with me, none was aware of using this simple tool that everyone has on their mobile, Google Earth or simple Google Map. So that much lack of awareness is there among the people to use this kind of tools. But once I showed, a lot of people were then in my team were proactively looking at it and trying to find where we are and how were the surroundings before that we came. So at that point, we could see what was before from the images and what is now by our own eyes. But this would be more systematic and more, I would say, standard way. If this kind of assessments like floods has been there for until September, then 2 months were gone, then team is there. In between, if something like this happens, that some mapping agency or their own couple of GIS experts, look at the key damages. So all damages in PDNA, I would say the role of there is a lot of, one problem I always tell a lot of people that remote sensing scientists or GIS scientists oversell the technology. In the entire PDNA exercise, I think the role of geospatial remote sensing technologies would be 10 to 20% depending on what you are looking at. If it is in agriculture, so Maharashtra is also requesting PDNA and it's a losses to the agriculture from monsoon, which is the most the problematic thing that has happened in Maharashtra. So there, remote sensing might play 30 to 40% roles in providing the right data for assessment. But in Jammu and Kashmir, agriculture losses of that type were only in one district, whereas other places there is a landslide, there is a houses damage, there is a hospital damage. That kind of losses cannot be captured. Yes, some landslide can be captured. So with some limitations, we have to cautiously use it. But in build back better or reconstruction, you need to redevelop those places or whatever you are rebuilding there. We have to make sure that we know the risks there. And either we have to go away from those risks, so avoid the exposure. That is where these data sets, geospatial, remote sensing, all these data sets. Not only that, I also talk of the frontier technologies. There can be, sensors, on-ground sensors that map the land subsidence and all that, which happen in Joshimath. Those can be, so there we know now more vulnerable areas because of this particular disaster. There are lots of areas that can be tagged. That is where those sensors can be placed. And these are also kind of geospatial data because they record the data with time, and location. So all these data come together. You can actually, when whatever funds we will be disbursing through PDNA, I mean government is disbursing, they can be put to proper use to have really a concept of build back better, so that next time when disaster happens, they have done the reconstruction or build back better in places which are more safe than previous, which have better early warning than previous. And this is where all tools and technologies are used. Right now, I must applaud these government officers in absence of entire technology, just with their knowledge, their conviction. They have all been, day and night working and they saved lives. There were not many casualties. In this kind of disaster, there would have been several hundreds of casualties. But I think no, it was less than 100. But most of the places, they know that which is vulnerable area, and they're proactively they are going and evacuating them and all that sort of thing. But it's person dependent. They can make mistake, and not every so one experience officer transfers everything is down. So therefore, having good technological unit that supports
And
entire damage assessment, reconstruction, build back better is very, very important. So that was my short take on this particular subject, but I'm available for more interaction on any technical questions on those aspects or any other thoughts that you might have on this question. Thank you.
thank you, Dr. Suresh. That was indeed a very clear, very practical, and from your own field experiences, of course. So that shows how technology can definitely aid such kind of assessments, and not just in post-disaster, in fact, all the phases of disaster management cycle. And of course, the AI, the UAVs, the drone technology, their use is getting more and more these days in disaster response, Krishna, but unfortunately, he is still in a meeting with Chief Secretary, so he's not able to join right now. But we have one section for the question answer session is still with us, so participants are encouraged to share their queries, their questions, uh, whatever it can be. I mean, not necessarily that it has to be very
1 minute.
expert kind of question. So please feel free to unmute yourself and ask to respective speakers. So if any one of you like
I
to
can see one question as Mr. Ravi Kumar from TIS Mumbai has asked, I guess, to Dr. Mithila, that can you tell how child protection agencies like CWC are functioning in post-disaster recovery of children? If Dr. Mithila, can you answer this question? That will be great.
Yes, thank you for the question. So, from the day one itself, while doing the response activities, we also had CWC in picture. So they have their counselors. So few, like we first of all, what we did is we took the data, disappropriate data. That means how many male child, how many female child. So whether they are orphaned. So we were getting overwhelming response from different people, like asking to whether we wanted to adopt a child, what are the process. So from the day one, CWC were in active way to do that, and also under Child Welfare Committee and also Women and Child Department, we have counselors. The constant counseling activities are also being given by them, and also we try to make sure their education needs and facilities were addressed. If they are having any loans or anything related to their education, because some of the students were studying in abroad and their family members were killed in the disaster. So during that situation and in all those kind of interventions, CWs were in place. So whenever there is an activity related to disaster management, we also used to call people from CWC, not only the counseling purpose, also how their education facility can be restarted, whether they are having enough uniform, whether the materials, the study materials, if they are not able to get that, how to give it to that child. And also a monthly wise, initially a certain amount were given to the child. If that particular child is orphaned, then who we needed to send that child to, whether to a care, to a relative, or another member, because there were so many people who were during that time coming in front saying we will take care of the child. So that kind of things were really being taken care by CWC, and they are constantly in touch with the students also, that means the children also. So these are the some of the activities in the disaster aspect they have done. And also while doing the PDNA, we had the CWC officers in our team, especially in the nutrition and health, and also in the psychosocial support. We took their expertise and how we can give a response and recovery. So these were the activities.
thank you, Dr. Midla, for answering that. If any other participants, if they wish to ask any
They,
questions.
yes. There is one question from Mr. Bhumit Kumar. I am a MTech student in disaster management and national security. My question is, what type of technologies when we can use for PDNA, and how can we do this process fast with the help of new gen tech? Dr. Shirish, if you can answer the question, that will be great.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's a good question. The first foremost, I would say, before PDNA, we should have very good remote sensing coverage on before and after disaster. There are enough satellites images available now, even to capture a smallest landslide, broken bridges. Of course, agriculture extensively can be captured today. What crops were there? How many crops have been lost? What is the condition of land? So there are several sectors actually: agriculture, horticulture, environment, water resources sector, changing path of rivers. River changes courses during flood kind of disaster that happened in Jammu kind of thing. How much crop was inundated? All those data in a probably numeric form can be an evidence base can be available before PDNA. Right now, what is happening is we are going and then we are asking them, okay, how much land was damaged? And they collect that data from villages by asking questions to farmers or someone from village reports. It comes to Tehsil, from Tehsil it comes to district. Of course, some number comes to us, and I'm sure that number will not be very wrong. It will be somewhere close, but it can be sometimes underestimated, can be overestimated. When we have these tools, so those remote sensing are very, very important. Of course, as Mr. Khan mentioned, drones, yes. If areas are, the damages are small and cannot be detected, like agriculture's extensive damage can be detected by satellites. But drones can be sometimes useful to detect finer damages to bridges and infrastructure, or the roads that are lost, like PMGs, where roads were lost in almost all the cases. Those cannot be detected immediately on satellite because of some limitations sometimes. So drone can be very useful. Another thing is GIS. Not everything is from satellite. GIS captures a lot of other information that is not just from the images. It can be social, economic agriculture statistics. It can be about people, their poverty level, their social economic indicators. So many things. Actually, we can then overlay and see what is the impact on livelihood. So this can also be done with GIS. When we go to this PDNA, another thing happens is we get lots of big tables, and that is what I'm referring to your question, Mr. Bhumi Kumar, about new generation technologies, and I have been using it. What I saw in most of the PDNA reports, the tables submitted by government are quite comprehensive, complicated, because they are used to that. They generate these kind of tables ages, from ages already 15, 20 years, they know how to make it. You look at the tables in PDNA report and your eyes just go around and you don't make much sense because those tables are not described well, or the synthesis of that table has not been done, or no visualization has been prepared in most of the reports. So report is 400 pages. The Kerala PDNA report, 550 pages or something. But what happens is the synthesis is not very well done, because I think those now it is possible that simply you can feed those table into some of the new generation AI tools and all that. You can give a proper prompt and you can generate much better visualizations. So you don't have to put that entire table and make things heavier, but you can just highlight a very gist of what you want to understand from this current particular table that has been obtained from each sector, whether it is agriculture, horticulture, fisheries, or animal husbandry, or housing, or flood control, or roads, or any PWD, or anything. And then you can provide those highlights that gives much better understanding to the decision makers. So AI tools currently, I think it becomes very, very important. Now, last just a quick take on how fast, how it can be expedited or made fast. I think having data preparedness before the PDNA team goes and taking use of all help of all these technologies will make PDNA much faster, rather than going there and then asking data, and then we see technologies are not used for collecting data, and then you depend only on government mechanisms to collect data. So that is in general my response to your question. Thank you.
Um, there is, I guess, one more question. It's more like a question and intervention made by. This is the last question we can take, I guess.
Yes, yes,
Uh,
because we have
yes.
already
So,
crossed the time.
yes, yes. So, Miss Farzana Khan, she has mentioned that in disaster risk management and risk assessment, attention is often given to physical and economic losses, while disasters also produce intangible impacts on social relations, cultural practices, and everyday life realities. Uh, as Dr. Mithila notes, PDNA must go beyond collection to meaningful listening. Traditional media and board games can play an integral part in creating trusted, enabling community based spaces to make this impact visible. Uh, she had previously designed a game, traditional game, board game 1098. Can you tell me anything on child sexual abuse, and keen on explore more similar approaches for inclusive post disaster need assessment? Are there such any specific tool available that she can refer to? Hello. Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes, yes. So, okay. So she's asking, are there any more approach or any other participatory tools that are available that she can refer to? Dr. Mithila, if you are there, can you answer this question? I guess she's not there. Mr. Altamash, are you there? Uh, I guess he has left because he will share some of the insights from his work as well on multi stakeholder consultation. Till then, if anybody is willing to say anything, please feel free to do so. Yes, ma'am. Divya, ma'am, please open your
Yeah,
mic, please.
thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Sanchita, for this opportunity.
Yes.
Actually, I just wanted to share one experience from my organization, Seeds. In last 2.5 years, we created a system, a digital infrastructure system, where families themselves can come and provide the information related to their losses, and also whatever the additional needs are there with that family. So through that system, the micro level data, the family level data comes. So for that, we are creating the system where family either can register their information through WhatsApp call, WhatsApp messages, through chatbot, or they can call to our center, and through this IVRS call, they can register all the information, or they can also use
Hello.
a link
Okay, okay.
where that
Okay,
information
okay.
can be filled into the Kovo. And once this information come to the entire system, it is by default get analyzed and refined and analyzed, and then that information is available for all the stakeholders like government, civil society organizations, and also like many other stakeholders like insurance companies and many other stakeholders, those who are interested to support the community for the relief, for the recovery. So I mean, we are about to complete this structure. So far we are at the very pilot stage. So in case any partner or any organization is interested to work on it, please let us know. We will be definitely try to, I mean, take you and your area to pilot actually there. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Divya ma'am, for sharing your experience and the amazing work. Seeds, we all know that Seeds have been doing pioneer work in terms of DRR capacity building and the work they are doing in JRNA, PDNA. So I'm sure many of the organization would be honored to collaborate with your organization. So please feel free to connect with Divya ma'am if any organization is willing to partner with Seeds. I guess. Shri sir, if you are there, Mr. Bhumit Kumar is asking how can he contact you to know more about PDNA texts. I guess you have provided the.
That is my
Okay.
email address.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much, sir. Actually, we are waiting for Mr. Altamash to join.
Okay, if there is no question, or can I excuse? I was
Yes,
online for quite a
definitely,
long time since last meeting.
yes,
Thank you.
definitely. Thank you so much, sir, for joining with us.
Thank you so much.
1 second. We can take anybody, if anybody is willing to share their experience. We are more like happy to welcome them to open their mic and speak.
Hi, this is Sakib here, and
Yes, please.
I have to add that in field we observe that people have some modified intention as in PDNA there is benefit involved. So how to deal these fake entitlements under PDNA and how to identify that? What is the mechanism right now?
Dr. Arka Prabha, will you be willing to answer this question? Dr. Arka Prabha, are you there? Dr. Mithila, if you are there, can you
I
answer
think
the...
Divya ma'am can respond.
Okay, Divya ma'am can answer the question. Divya ma'am?
Sorry, Sanchita, I could not listen. Can you repeat it again?
Yes. Mr. Mohammed, can you repeat the question again?
Just ma'am, Divya ma'am,
Yes,
I'm
sir.
Sakib here, and
Yes, sir.
my
Yes, sir.
question is that there's finance and benefits are involved in PDNA, and lot
Yeah,
of
yeah,
modified intentions are going on in the field, and how to
right.
identify those things, and
Yeah,
what should be mechanism or how to
yeah, yeah.
deal with this? Yeah.
Yeah. So in last a few pilots, we learned we created one layer of verification agents. These agents are the part of community only, some community leaders or some PRI members. They have provided a different kind of software in their mobile. Then they go door to door and check if whatever information is filled by the family is right or wrong. So in the last one, in the last response, we found more than 98% information was right. So we can say, like we always feel ki community can overestimate their loss and damage in case they get the opportunity to do by themselves. But here we found more than 98% information was right. So once this verification agent do the tick mark, yes, this information is right, then only that family receive the support. And also whatever information come to the this platform, it will also process for the future purpose ki in case the same family get affected in the any future disaster, then the same information will be utilized for the further disaster. So there will be no duplication and there will be no repetition. The family can just add the information of new disaster there. So you can also understand the vulnerability of multi-hazard in that same family, not just one event as a disaster. Thank you. Thank you for your question.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you
And
so
but
much, ma'am.
I think these initiatives have been taken up at the organization level. But how to integrate in governance or bureaucracy?
Yeah,
This
yeah, yeah.
this aspect
So
this need to
so
be, I think.
yeah, so in
Uh,
future when real time we will be utilizing this, government will be the main custodian of that data and information, and the local governance will directly getting all the information. And people like us, those who are part of civil society organizations and some private sector support provider or CSR groups, we will be having only the information which is required for our response, not all the information.
Thank you, ma'am.
And for that,
Actually,
along with government, we
I
are
asked.
also creating the
Yeah,
data security level, data
yeah.
security policy also with the government.
Based on my field experience, because I have been posted in
Yeah,
districts and I
yeah,
have
yeah,
done several PDNA I have conducted.
yeah.
So I found
Perfect.
this gap because it is very, very, it needs to be dealt.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
thank you.
Great. So we can do one thing. We can discuss bilateral. I'm sharing here my number also. So we will be
Yeah,
in
Yes.
ma'am.
touch.
Divya, ma'am, you know me, Sakib here.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
have
so
done
sorry.
some.
I
Yeah.
can,
I
we
remember.
can, yes, ma'am, you can share your contact so that you guys can have a further
Yes,
detailed
yes,
conversation on this
yes.
later on.
Now we have
Over to
Altamas
you.
here. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
So
yes.
Altamas, we utilized
Mr.
your time.
Altamash, over to you.
Sorry
thank
for
you.
the inconvenience. I got dropped out. So I understand that now we have almost covered all the first topics and uh, discussion points. So, and we are also now we have run out of the time. So, will Sanchita, should we move forward to the closing of the session now?
Yes, definitely we can do so. Okay,
Sure.
all right, let me open my camera. So, okay. So, on the behalf of Sphere India Academy, I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to all the participants for joining today in this very important and meaningful discussion on strengthening post disaster needs assessment, integrating technology, indigenous knowledge, and multi sector recovery planning. So, as we all know, these climate induced disasters continue to grow in scale and complexity. Today's discussions have reaffirmed the importance of robust, evidence based, inclusive, coordinated, and PDNA processes to guide the resilient recovery planning in India. The webinar benefited greatly from the collective version and the experience shared during the sessions. So, we extend our heartfelt thanks to all the distinguished speakers for their valuable contribution and insightful reflections. Your perspectives on PDNA framework, technology integration, indigenous and community knowledge, multi-sector coordination, inclusion and disability sensitive approaches, field-based experiences, including the lessons from Mepadi, Kerala, have significantly enriched today's discussion and dialogue and provided a clear direction for strengthening PDA practice in India. A special note of appreciation to our moderator, Mr. Altamash Khan, for skillfully guiding the discussion, ensure smooth flow and time management, and effectively synthesizing the key insight across the session. So, your thoughtful facilitation has played a very significant and crucial role in shaping and focused and engaging discussions. Thank you so much. So, we also sincerely thank all the participants, representatives from all the government institutions, academia, UN agencies, civil society, and humanitarian sector for your active engagement, questions, and reflections, which added a depth to the relevance of the discussion. With this, we conclude today's webinar. We look forward to your continued engagement with Sphere India Academy as we work collectively towards strengthening PDNA systems and advance resilient, inclusive recovery and planning across India. So, thank you once again for joining with us and wish you a pleasant evening ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanchita, and thank you
Thank
to
you.
India
Thank you.
Academy. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
everyone.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.